A pretty 16-year-old brutally murdered.
It's just kind of instant terror in your heart.
Her body found just feet away from a busy high school.
We had the drill team that were coming to meet to get on a bus to go to a competition. We had some football players working out on the field.
But even with so many potential witnesses, the killer's identity remains a mystery haunting cops for decades.
It's such a violent crime. It's such a random crime. I don't know if this guy's in prison. I don't know if he's dead.
Now, nearly 30 years later, will new findings put heat on this ice-cold case?
It doesn't seem like something that this person would never pop up again.
She was the all-American girl next door, a wholesome teenager with long red curls. Sarah Yarborough had everything in front of her.
She was passionate about, music, dance, art.
Andrew remembers his sister Sarah was always there when he needed her.
She was always willing to help me out. She was just thinking back, a gracious sister.
But those good times with Sarah would end in a harrowing way.
It's crushing.
Andrew remembers he was just 11 years old and playing in a Saturday morning soccer tournament when police came to the game to speak to his parents.
They didn't tell my parents, obviously, what had happened yet. They just had indicated that something was wrong and they needed to come with them.
Something was terribly wrong. That morning around 8 a.m., Sarah pulled up to Federal Way High School to meet her cheerleading team. The girls were about to leave for a competition, but Sarah never made it on the bus.
How did Sarah die?
She was strangled.
In a shocking discovery, around the same time the cheerleaders were waiting to load the bus, two boys find Sarah's body lying just 150 feet away from her parked car in a brushy area near the high school.
Did anyone hear Sarah scream, a commotion, a scuffle?
We didn't have anybody that heard any screaming, but we did have a jogger that saw our suspect interacting with Sarah's body in the bushes.
Strangled and reportedly sexually assaulted, Sarah was left for dead in broad daylight.
Did Sarah have any enemies? Was she involved in drugs, the wrong crowd?
No, that definitely wasn't her.
Any scorned ex-boyfriends?
No, there would be nobody that she would have any grievances with.
The violent and random murder gripped the quiet community of Federal Way, Washington with fear.
What was the atmosphere like after Sarah turned up dead?
It changes things afterwards. I think people were much more conscious about being in groups, not being alone.
Ted Bowe would know about those changes firsthand. That's because he went to high school with Sarah all those years ago.
Did you know her?
I did. I knew who she was. You'd see her in the hallway, and she was on the drill team. Can't miss the red hair.
And in an ironic twist, he's now the sheriff's captain heading up the team in charge of solving the crime.
This is the case that would be the most important for me as I look at the wall. And not to discount the other cases, but this one I have a personal tie to. It means something to me to be able to say that, while I was here, we solved this case.
Following Sarah's murder, there was a massive manhunt. Over 2,500 tips poured in, and most importantly, invaluable physical evidence was collected from the crime scene.
Any DNA recovered at the scene that
Yes.
wasn't Sarah's?
Yes, we had a full male profile from the scene.
Full male profile.
Yes.
Have you been able to match this DNA to anyone else?
No, there's been several samples submitted over the years, but no matches.
Over the years, there have been only a few persons of interest identified, but no arrests ever made.
What stood out to these individuals about the person leaving the bush?
There was an age range of probably maybe like a late teenager, early 20s. They thought he had kind of shaggy, dirty blonde hair. Now we know there's a high likelihood he has blue eyes.
With that description, forensic artists drew a composite of the killer. But even with that sketch, the mystery man's identity eluded cops.
It just seemed like a very solvable case from the beginning. And it had a lot of media exposure, a lot of community interest.
After thousands of hours of investigation, much to the frustration of detectives, the case froze over.
any reason to believe the suspect is still living in Washington State?
There's theories that the suspect could have been passing through, visiting the area. The suspect could be dead. Logic would cause you to believe that if he did this offense, that he would end up in a felon databank somewhere. Yet we've had no matches over all these years.
But detectives never gave up hope, even scouring an ancestry database, going all the way back to the birth of America in hopes of finding a match to that DNA.
There was a direct relationship to a Fuller's that came over on the Mayflower, which generated some tips. We looked at some local people with the last name that we eliminated through DNA.
When you realize this, do you think, wow, this is the big break in the case?
Yeah, at the time, we thought it was a huge break. But once again, we were able to obtain DNA from everybody, and they were all eliminated.
But could all those dead ends finally lead somewhere? Now, nearly 3 decades later, that rough sketch has been replaced with a new age progression portrait. The technology called polymorphism uses DNA markers from the suspected killer to envision what he would look like now.
You have DNA recovered at the scene, you have reliable, it appears, eyewitnesses, you have this age progression, you have a lot to go on, and yet still nothing. That must be incredibly frustrating.
It is frustrating. It's all there. If we can identify the suspect, this is a solvable case. We don't need a confession to solve it. We have everything is there to get us to the finish line.
But that finish line now requires the help of someone who might recognize this killer. Look closely. And perhaps nobody would be happier to see an arrest in this case than Sarah's brother Andrew, who has a strong message for the man who took his sister's young life so long ago.
Your sister's killer could be watching this right now. It's a national show. What's your message, if he is?
Take responsibility for your actions. Yeah. It's as simple as that. It's time. It's been a long time.
If you have any information related to the Yarborough case, you can call the King County Sheriff's Office at 1-206-296-3311. Or you can submit a tip anonymously at crimewatchdaily.com. I'm Chris Hansen. If you like this story, make sure you tune in every day to Crime Watch Daily. You can find where the show airs in your city at crimewatchdaily.com. Watch it live or record it on your DVR and watch it at night. And to all those criminals out there, remember, we are watching.